Hi everyone, welcome back to episode number 5. Today we have Santiago Dobles, Guru Santiago Dobles. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so just a background biography, basic information about Santiago Dobles. So he is a musician, audio engineer, producer, martial artist from Florida, United States of America. He is known to be the guitarist for progressive metal band Aghora, and he has also been a graduate from Berklee College of Music. He's the owner of Dobles Productions and a well-known silat practitioner, Pencak Silat, student and educator under the lineage of Grandmasters, Mahagurus, William the Thouars and De Bordes. Santiago, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a lot of stuff.
Is there anything
I'm
else?
just a regular guy.
Is there anything else to add to that resume?
No, it's too much. No, I'm an audio engineer for TV in terms of my profession, but that's about it. You know.
Okay. So, I mean, there's so much stuff we will get into today. Mindfulness, holistic approaches to martial arts and music.
Sure.
So, first of all, how have you been keeping during these times?
The same as usual, man. Training, meditating and movement, and I haven't been making too much music because I've had to work a lot. So I never stopped working during the COVID. But other than that, the same as usual, working and training and taking care of my family.
Yeah, working and training and, having a family life as well. I mean, it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of organization.
For sure.
Yeah, so if we get straight through to this, maybe you can provide us some information about your martial arts history, like your background, your lineages, your trainings, and along with this, how it has enriched your life.
Well, I started as a kid. My mom put me in Shaolin Kung Fu when I was young, and probably around 7 or 8 years old. And then I did some karate, and then I left martial arts for a little bit and focused on yoga and hatha yoga and things like Kriya yoga. And then I came back to martial arts when I was around 19, and I found Pencak Silat, and I just fell in love with it. And to me, it was one of the most beautiful and devastating martial arts at the same time. And it had everything I was looking for internally with yoga, but also the martial side. So for me, it was like, okay, this is perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And this Pencak Silat you speak about, the origins of it come from Indonesia, am I right?
Indonesia, southern China, India, that whole area was, before it was nomadic Chinese natives, nomadic natives, Malay natives. And then later became a Hindu empire, and then a Buddhist empire, and then later a Muslim empire. So they kind of made an amalgamation of everything, and they kept what worked for them. And then I think it's evolved now. Now it's no longer an Indonesian art per se, or a Malay art. It's become a global heritage, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, going through various dynasties, I mean, in China and also with some of the empires in India, as you mentioned, together with
Yeah.
the Majapahit as well in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, Majapahit and Srivijaya Empire.
Yeah, Srivijaya empires as well. And of course, since the 1600s as well, when Islam came into Southeast Asia, particularly in Malaysia and Indonesia. So how do you think these various empires and dynasties have contributed or towards this lineage of martial arts?
Well, I think if we look historically, right, you had nomadic Chinese, and you had the empire of Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan, right? They also had an influence on this as well. And then you had the Portuguese doing trading and colonizing in Southeast Asia. Then you had later the British and the Dutch empires and the French as well. So I think all of these combined together, you know. And I think what ended up happening is you got a mix combatively of all these different flavors. Please excuse the noise. My neighbors decided to cut their jungle today.
Reggaeton night.
Yeah, I guess. They
Yeah,
had all day to do it, but they do it now. It's okay.
yeah, not a problem. So, in terms of your personal lineage, with the Thouars and the Bordes, would you want to share with us a bit more about these two particular lineages and the different styles and what it actually is all about?
Yeah. The Okay. Well, the Thouars family, they practice a style. They practice several styles, really, but mainly they do serak, which comes from Papa Sera or Abba Sera, who was a Chinese Indonesian Arab trader. He was a horse trader, and so he had roots in Indonesia and in Persia, which is Iran and Iraq. So he had a mix of all these cultures, right? And then this style has 9 martial arts. It has Chimande, which is an old style from Java, okay, which comes from Bagua from China, southern China, but also a combination of things from the Muslims, the Moros, okay. They call it the Prophet's Fist, and so probably you have some things there from the Crusades as well, when people left the Middle East and came and hid in Southeast Asia. The Wali Songo, the 9 Muslim Sufis, they brought a lot of secrets to Indonesia and they left them there. Okay, so anyhow, you have Chimande, you have Monyet, which is monkey system or monkey style, which is similar like the monkey systems in India and in China. Harimau, which is a tiger system. And then you have Chikalong, which is kind of like a Tai Chi. Okay, and all these Chimande, Chikalong, those are systems from an area in Java near the Chimande village. Okay, and then you have Sarbandar, which is another system that influenced Sarak. Because Sarak is not that old. It's from the 1800s. Okay, it's a little bit before Wing Chun, but it's around that era. Okay, and then it's mixed with things from China. It's mixed with Tai Chi, Bakwa, and Xingyi, and Kun Tao, which is old Southern Shaolin type of training, which comes from the island of Macau. Okay, and then that system is what the Thouars family inherited from their uncles, the De Vries and the Thouars, and their grandfather, who trained with several of the students of Pak Sarak. And they also trained with Pak Sarak before Pak Sarak passed away in the late 1800s. So the Thouars brothers, my teachers, Uncle Willem and his brothers, they brought silat to the United States in the 1950s. Okay, and what they kept was a snapshot of what silat was in Indonesia prior to World War II. Okay, after World War II, a lot of people were killed off. A lot of silat masters left. They went to Guyana, they went to Holland, they went to South Africa, and so you had a lot of silat masters left, and the ones that stayed either got put in concentration camps or they changed the art a little bit, and it became, after World War II, it became more Islamic influenced, and they got rid of the shamanic animalism. They got rid of some of that. And probably places like Bali still have some of the real old essences,
Yeah.
But anyhow, so Sarak is a mix of those things, but they kept it highly combative because it was used all the way up until World War II.
Yeah.
Okay. And the De Bordes family, that's a style of Harimau Minangkabau, which comes from Sumatra, the island of Sumatra. And it's a very low system. It's a Harimau, it's a tiger style. And it's more postural based, very much like asanas in yoga or like in Kalari Prayat. So it's very similar to Kalari. Of course, all these systems use weapons, knives, sticks, machetes, what they call the golok or the parang, which is the sword, kerambit, which is a small hook knife. I don't know if I have one here, but I do. It looks something like this, right? So, the kerambit.
Wow.
You see it. But Mainly, the main system I trained was silat, and I've been doing that for over 20 years, a little bit longer. And Harimau, I trained it as well. I've been doing it for 10 years. Um, and even though I've come to a good level with it, my heart is still in silat.
Yeah.
So to me, Harimau and silat are very similar. They're two sides of the same coin, but maybe a different path up the mountain. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's a different mountain path, but they're all, the goals and the priorities are the same. It's just how you get there, right? To me, silat is designed to age well when you get older, and Harimau can age well as well too, but you have to adapt it. It changes as you get older. You might not be doing some of the things that are athletically the way they're done in Harimau. So silat is a tighter, closer system, if you will. But they're both fantastic. I use Harimau for conditioning and for the spiritual aspects of it, and especially the ground fighting and the explosiveness of being able to go high to low, low to high. Okay, but the truth is, both of those arts have the same similarities. It's just maybe the priorities might be different. The stances might be slightly different.
I see. Well, that's a very comprehensive and enriching descriptions of the lineages you are part of, and I think it will be very useful for maybe even your students or practitioners all around the world. Once this is on YouTube, and people who are just more curious about Southeast Asian martial arts and what you do for a living.
Yeah.
So what relevance do you think martial arts has in our modern day lives? How can it be relevant and useful?
Well, I think let's just talk about the energy side of martial arts. The movements, especially in art like silat or kuntao, which is really the origin of these two arts. The movements open up channels. They open up the nadis and the meridians and the marma points, the chakras and things like that. And the breath work is the same as pranayama and tumo from the Tibetans. In fact, a lot of the practices in silat are almost identical to energetic practices that I studied with Tibetan Chulkor. Okay, right. I don't know if you're familiar with Chulkor, but yeah, it's almost identical. The breath work, the focus, the visualizations, the use of the body, exactly. In fact, when you posted that, I think I smiled because it's the same, except they call it a little different. Now, supposedly, Atisha, I don't know if he was from Indonesia.
He was from Bengal, and then he went to Indonesia.
Yeah, correct. He's from India, I think. He went down to Indonesia, and then from Indonesia, he brought those secrets back up. And those secrets ended up in China and in Japan and Thailand. Thailand, China, and then Japan. And then they worked their way into Tibet. Right. So a lot of those secrets were in India and in Indonesia many, many, many years ago. And the practices like tumo and things like this, those were actually done in the heat, like in India and Indonesia, and not like they're done now in the cold, right? But the breath work is almost identical, man. And I don't talk too much about the internal in public, but my students know, and I teach about it. I also teach a lot of people about Kundalini and Qigong and things like this. And Indonesia, they call it Tenaga Dalam or Tenaga, but it's the same as pranayama or very similar to Kriya Yoga as well, these type of things.
Yeah, it's like the control of the life force in a way, isn't it? The chi, the prana, the Tenaga Dalam, which is the internal energy. So it's like an internal martial arts perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and how in this day and age, I mean, being where you are at in Florida or in any part of the US or in the Western world, Eastern world, whatnot, but particularly where you are at in the US with the situations right now, do you think martial arts is really very important in our times?
Yeah, 100%, 100%, because you never know when you're going to need it. You never know when you're going to need to use it. And it's clear that the climate is setting itself up where if things continue in that type of chaos and anarchistic type or anarchy, you're going to have chaos. And eventually they're going to test real men with real purpose in their lives. And when you start invading in people's peace, it's hard to put that back. You know what I mean? So, for example, if a family or somebody's in danger, if somebody puts, anybody's family in danger, I guarantee you that at that point, you're going to find real men step up to the plate and educate people physically.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's a form of self-defense, but at the same time, it's combative, lethal.
Very, 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 very self-defense. Yeah,
Yes.
of course. Well, it's silat and kuntao have always been arts of war.
Yes.
But they don't come out unless you invade the home front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
and
kind of like a tiger. You don't go into a tiger's cave and expect to come out okay.
yeah, and you mentioned briefly about the history and how this, various martial arts within the lineage has transformed, has evolved over time. And we speak many hundreds years ago and many hundreds of years ago in Southeast Asia, for example, different parts of Asia. And we are speaking about the landscape and the climate being also in a jungle, perhaps a form of a jungle warfare as well. And, I didn't know much about silat, even though I'm in Singapore and it's, we have silat academies here and it's taught in school if people want to join. But after I started following your page, I don't know, over a decade ago, and I began to see some of the training you did. And, the amount of squats, lunges, strength training. And it wasn't until, not even when I was practicing Hatha and Ashtanga yoga, but it was actually by viewing some of the videos, I actually started to work on a lot of my weaknesses, like squats, like various lunges, which you do have in yoga practices, but because it's a flow, you don't get to work too much on the actual.
Right. Yoga can help with isometric strength and flexibility and some tendon strength. But if you really want to take things another level, you have to put load on the tendons and bones and muscles.
Yes.
And I think the Chinese and the warrior arts in all cultures, to carry a shield and a sword and a backpack and, supplies, you had to be a strong person. And so at some point, all the warrior cultures had some form of strength training, if you will.
Yeah.
In World War II, actually, then this brings me to my next thing that I integrated into my way of life and silat training was I integrated actual barbell strength training. And that all came from the Nazis, from the Germans. They were figuring out how to make these super strong soldiers, right? Super soldiers.
Yeah.
They were giving them, crystal meth, right? And they were giving them things like cocaine, and they were giving them pharmaceutical grade meth and steroids and testosterone, and pushing the limits scientifically to see what these people could do, right? So they tried to do this for many, many times. Hold on one second. Give me 1 second. Trying to find a quiet space here.
No worries.
Anyhow, so the Nazis began developing very strong super soldiers. And when the Americans began to fight them, they realized, man, these guys were really, really strong. They had the best technology at the time, the best weaponry, and they were getting very strong. So the U.S. began to reverse engineer how to do that. Right. And they used things like steroids and testosterone as well, and they used definitive strength methods. And then when a lot of those German scientists came to the U.S. after World War II, Project Paperclip, you can look it all up later, they started developing, a lot of the Americans started developing methods to get stronger. And that's how they wanted to dominate the Olympics, right?
Right.
At the same time, the Soviets were learning from the Americans, right? And so they developed their own way using science. And so now in today's world in strength, the American powerlifting and the Russian powerlifting and Olympic lifting and Bulgarian Olympic lifting, they produce some of the strongest humans on the planet. And what they found was, this is a really interesting thing, right? People who did powerlifting and Olympic lifting had 20% more bone density than any other human being in any other sport. That included Tai Chi and all the internal stuff and all the stuff that people want to get strong with, iron shirt, whatever you call it, right?
Yeah.
You get the same effect doing barbell training if you do it correctly, right? So I've been on a mission to learn this. I've been training with an old strength coach. His name's Dr. Patrick Jacobs. And he trained Doug Furness. He also trained Dave Passanella, and he trained Anthony Clark. These are all world champion powerlifters, all who squatted 1,000 pounds, deadlifted over 900 pounds or 800 pounds. I can't remember the exact numbers, but you're talking about world champions. And Doug Furness ended up influencing Eddie Cohen, who became the world record holder. So that's my lineage in strength training, goes to them through Dr. Patrick. And I incorporated all that strength training into my silat, and I teach it to my students as well. And what I found, Josh, is that the methods, the breath work, the breathing, the bracing, the control of the body, the isometric training, it's like a meditation. To me, it was like the most advanced form of any kind of kriya or mudra possible, physical mudra, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that somewhere down the line, the ancient knowledge of getting strong was harnessed. I don't know who, maybe through the Vikings, maybe through the Chinese, and somehow it ended up into what we know as modern weightlifting.
Right.
The focus and the things that you do in there, I mean, it's so if it's trained properly, it's very internal, but a lot of people don't understand that. They don't, but what I saw in powerlifting especially, a lot of the visualizations were very similar to things I experienced in Kundalini, but instead of focusing on enlightenment or focusing on some spiritual bliss or spiritual awakening, they were just focusing on not dying under the barbell, right? With the barbell having 500, 600 pounds on there, right? But it really is you could call it your chi, your willpower, your shakti, whatever you want. It's that energy to get and focus and make something happen. So.
Yeah, very insightful as well. There's a lot of good stuff you are mentioning here in this first part of the series
So
as
I
well.
apologize about the noise, the neighbor, the kids, but that's life.
No problem. I mean, we make through the different challenges, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, for those who are listening, who are tuning into this, Guru Santiago Dobles, I mean, he's also a teacher and educator in martial arts as well in Florida, particularly with silat and the lineages he has mentioned, and strength and conditioning training as well. So, to you, Santiago, what makes a good student?
Well, I don't do any of this stuff commercially. I have a job.
Right.
And I have a career, so that's a blessing. I don't have to prostitute any of it to make money, so that allows me to do all that because I love to do it. And right off the bat, it allows me to devote and dedicate more time to anybody who wants to come through my door to train. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to me, a good student is somebody that wants to improve whatever it is that they want to achieve, and they understand how to, over time, make everything part of their life, right? So that we have a saying in silat: as it is in life, it is in martial arts, and as it is in martial arts, it is in life. So we try to find that balance.
Non-duality, yeah.
Correct. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah, I think integration is very important in any method, any form of training, really. Whether we're speaking about martial arts, whether we're speaking about music, the whole idea of integrating our theory into practice, into living, you
Yeah.
know, and to
Yeah.
actually see beyond the denominations of this illusion in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, thanks for sharing about the martial arts histories from your perspective. Now, if we move towards the musical end from your career, um, if we look at Aghora, it's also like when you mention about the various lineages as well, the different mixtures, the different forms, and it's also within the music as well of Aghora. I mean, the different elements. There's very jazzy elements. There's elements of
Hmm.
world music, particularly from the East.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
and hard rock, heavy metal, and of course the classical music as well, and whatnot. I've noticed across the three albums we have released. The first album that was very deep into Eastern philosophy.
Yeah, very, very much into India's culture, tantric yoga, you know, Aghori shamanism, if you will, mysticism from India,
Yes,
for sure.
yes, and
Keep
then
going. I want to hear what you perceived.
yes, and then you had that from that first album. Moving into the second album, you still had some elements of that, and then
Yes.
and then you had a dime tribute as well, instrumental track.
Well, because he had died around the time we were writing that music, so it only seemed fitting.
2006.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but
Yeah.
yeah, he was such an influence, man, and I met him when I was 15 years old, and he was such a cool person, and definitely influenced me as a guitar player. And
Yeah.
so it was only right for me to make some kind of musical mandala for him.
Yeah. Yeah. So this album, second album, Formless, came out in 2006. And
Correct.
and then there was a period of
Well,
time before.
well, that album, before you go on, Formless
Yeah.
really goes into Dzogchen, Tibetan shamanism,
Right.
Taoist shamanism, and kind of this internal journey from that perspective. So you could think of the first record as like Kundalini, the second record is like Samadhi yoga.
Yeah. So you have the various transformations, transitions, the
Yeah.
different evolutions of concepts, of ideas, musicalities, spirit, from
Yeah.
tantric yoga to Dzogchen and shamanism. And then we go into the most recent one,
Hmm.
entheogenic. And what would you say? I mean, it's a mix of also arcane mythology to some sense.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like, okay, so you left Tibet in India and you traveled down to Indonesia for a while, but then somehow you went back up the Silk Road and you ended up in the Middle East.
Yes.
And you find all the ancient stuff in the Middle East. And then during the time, I had gone with my mom to Teotihuacan, the pyramids in Mexico. And
Right.
I had a lot of profound spiritual experiences on that pyramid, just meditating and spending time there with my mom, and very interesting visions and feelings. And it was clear to me that, we had terraformers or co-creators that made things happen, and they're beyond any religion that we experience here on this planet. But they form planets, and they terraform societies, if you will. Because if you look at mankind, uh, it wasn't until 6,000 years ago that all of a sudden they start building pyramids,
Right.
or 10,000 years ago, which I think actually the pyramids are much older than that.
Hmm.
But if you look at, Iraq, there's all these different forms there that supposedly go back to the Anunnaki.
Right.
Um, some say they're alien. I have a different theory. I think they are, but I think also we're the alien.
Hmm.
Okay. And then they are more like interdimensional surfers, if you will,
Right.
interdimensional beings, you
Yeah.
know?
You
So,
covered.
so
Yeah.
that album, the last album, really goes into that, and also shamanism, both from Africa. And I was involved in a lot of reading and studying and meditating, and also understanding entheogens. I
Yeah.
won't go further into that, but expanding the possibilities of what's possible and trying to get to the essence of things. And I tried to really bring that into the music as much as possible so that the listener could have a journey, a very different journey than the other two albums.
Yes, and you mentioned on the album as well the concept of Madhuk Iya, which
Yeah,
you just mentioned as well, from the Middle
yeah.
East, and it was also the first album which was instrumental. Would you like to share with us the different histories and the process?
We didn't start out wanting it instrumental. We tried certain vocalists. We had offered a lot of vocalists to come sing on it, and for whatever reason, it always fell short. Either they didn't do a good job or they disappeared on us. It was very mysterious. It was almost like no matter what we did to get a singer to sing on that record, or it was impossible. Something would come up. And I mean, I had talked to Mike Patton before. I had contacted him. Then he disappeared. Then I contacted him again. Then he said he turned it down. I contacted Jeff Tate from Queensryche. He turned it down. So I felt, you know what, the universe and the elements that are involved in this record just don't want somebody to sing on it. So I think it's frequencies that are much more subtle, so we had to let the instruments talk.
Yes. So you mentioned Tate and you mentioned Patton. So were you guys looking for more of a male voice for this
We
record?
wanted male and female, and a couple times we had different local friends come and sing. Diana tried singing. Danishta was going to come back and sing, but then her schedule got complicated. She does her own music and she's touring with her own stuff.
Right.
I don't write off the potential of having vocals on another record, but at this time I find it limiting. I find it's almost there's no limit when you do instrumental. So I know some fans were upset about that, but at the same time, I never have gone against the flow of things, and it just seemed this was the right way to go for us, at least.
Yeah, and I think I can say many of the reviews as well. Very very highly rated album. And it's very heavy. It's very progressive. It brings you into different landscapes. It brings you into different journeys. And I think for anyone who hasn't checked out this album, it came out not too long ago, and to also just check out what Aghora has done throughout the years. And I came across you guys when I was in the middle of my teens, I think when I was 16, and it was
Wow.
Immortal Bliss.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it was like really heavy, like this kind of like polyrhythmic guitars, like and then once it stops with the drums, and then when the vocals came in and the lead guitar, almost like Steve Vai-like kind of like phrasing along with the vocals was very unique. Actually,
Yeah,
you
it
got a
was
lot of
very.
ideas from very jazzy.
Yeah, at that time I was very big into Steve Vai and to El Shankar and Zakir. Not Zakir. John McLaughlin.
Yeah.
John McLaughlin and Zakir Hussain. That
Shakti.
type of thing. Shakti for sure, and also Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah, I think even a lot of your playing these days also, there's a lot of the pentatonics, especially when you're playing with the pentatonics and all that. It's very influenced by Mahavishnu first two records. Like,
Yeah, especially Jan Hammer.
yeah,
I copy a lot of the phrasing of the violinist and the keyboard player, Jan Hammer. I
yeah,
forget the violinist's name now, but Visions of the Emerald Beyond, that album
yeah.
really stuck with me, especially the phrasing, and I kind of took from that a lot of ideas and applied it to my own guitar playing, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the fusion element was very strong, and I think what you guys have done, and girls as well, over the span of Aghora, I think it's very unique style of music. It didn't imitate anyone. This is originality.
Right.
And I think
Right.
even to shout out to all the members who have played a part of your legacy, and even Alan and Matt Thompson as well contributed. I think phenomenal. It was phenomenal on your recent record. It was
Magical. I mean, that last record to me is so magical. It really is. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how magical that record is. It really is.
Are you guys planning on doing another one, number 4?
We are for sure, yes. Alan has some health complications right now with his hands and some spinal issues, so he's getting some medical treatments for that.
Right.
And we're kind of giving time. Right now, my schedule is very busy. Like I said, I haven't stopped working during the pandemic or the plandemic, however we want to call it. And Matt is doing well, and we talk often. In fact, we're working on some projects together right now with my father. Um, I'm working on a very special musical project right now, also with another individual, but I'm not allowed to say yet until that particular individual wants to talk about it. But I
Is
think
it
it's
Tony
going to make a
Choi
lot.
again?
No,
Synchronicity?
no. Well, I do have other projects with Tony. Yes, we're supposed to do a Synchronicity 2 record also. But no, this is something else. But I think it's going to make a lot of fans very, very happy if it does go through. Um, Other than that, Aghora 4 will happen. I don't know when, but I am writing music. I have been. I already started. So it'll happen when the universe wants it to happen.
So this, I mean, without probing too much, I mean, this new project you're talking about, which will whet the appetite of the fans, are you handling songwriting, guitars, production, or?
I'm writing guitars with the other individual. He's also a guitar player, and Matt Thompson's on drums, and it's going to be a good thing.
Any
And
hint into what kind of music?
well, like I said, the fans will be very happy. Um, it's I can't say anymore, but there were 3 people that were very I was very close to in Cynic. Well,
Ah,
4. I was very close to 4 of them. Paul and I kind of had a falling out after the Cynic reunion. I don't want to get into it, but I wish him the best. But I don't really have any contact with him. I was always very close with Sean Reinert, and may he rest in peace. His passing affected me very much and affected people that were close to him. We miss him very much, but I think Sean put me together with another person that did not want to make music, but I think Sean was making it happen. So when Sean was alive, there was talk about doing something, and for that individual was Sean. And after Sean passed, that individual connected with me to maybe potentially make some music. So we'll see what happens. I don't want to.
yeah,
I'm excited. I'm very excited, but I don't want to. I don't want to get people's hopes high, but at the same time, I think if it happens, it will be a very amazing thing for everybody involved. I don't think it's going to be metal though, but I
right.
think it'll still excite the fans that are willing to be musically challenged. You know.
Yes. So you've come a long way in your journey, doing many different things. I mean, you graduated from Berklee. You started Aghora. Was it around the same time you were in college as
Yeah,
well?
I started Aghora at the same time I was at Berklee. Yep, and then it didn't get serious until I came back to Miami and contacted Sean, and then we got the ball rolling.
Yeah. So you had the music thing kicked in, and all together with your martial arts, yoga, martial arts
Mhm.
again as well. So how do you envision yourself? I mean, if you were to live another 3-4 decades, whatnot, how do you envision? Do you
I
envision
I
any
hope I
any
live
other
another 5 decades.
decades?
In fact, I just started. I started now. I've been fasting a lot lately, but I started now incorporating a few days a week of just one meal a day.
Right.
And that's been good. I've done 2 meals a day for a while, and
Yeah.
now I'm going back to one meal a day, and I like it. I like what's happening, but I like the idea of extending my telomeres and
Yes.
getting my cells to live longer. I plan to keep evolving musically, and obviously with the martial arts. And to me, the martial arts and yoga are one and the same. It's the same internal path for me, and I keep doing it. I don't think I'm ever going to stop. I have my job and my career, which I love doing as well. That helps me support my family, my home, and it allows me to do things like Aghora and teach martial arts and things like that. So I think I'm just going to keep doing that as much as possible.
Yes, definitely. And, definitely wish you all the best with your ventures as well. So, I mean, before we go, just the last few minutes, do you have, are there any tips you would like to share? Whether people are watching, whether they are from a martial arts background, whether they are from a musical
Yeah.
background, any kind of background about mindfulness in daily life or handling
Okay,
challenges.
so I'll give you a tip I learned from my Qigong and Kundalini teacher, Dr. Glenn Morris. He, before he passed, one of the things he told me was, you have to make things as easy as brushing your teeth. So it has to be a habit. And the human likes bad habits. So you have to trick the human and add more bad habits. But the bad habit is actually practice.
Right.
Whatever discipline you're doing, add a little more practice. Make the mind and body think it's a bad habit. It'll do it more. You see what I'm saying? So you're fooling the mind, right? You're fooling the monkey in the mind. And the other thing is, one thing that he taught me also was, every 5 minutes, every hour that you're awake, steal 5 minutes of that hour to train something.
Right.
Whether it's your music or your meditation or your qigong or your whatever, play guitar. I mean, you can apply this to anything. So what this did was, this gave me an extra 2.5 hours a day of practice. But it's
Wow.
practice I didn't even feel. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I no longer thought about, especially guitar playing, no longer thought about sitting there and practicing 2 hours in a row. No, I would just pick up the guitar and play 5-10 minutes every hour, something like this. So I apply this to my life all the time, especially with silat. So right now I train every 5 minutes, every hour for about 5 minutes. I'll find some training to do. Like people have a cigarette break. Well, I don't smoke, so I have a silat break. You see what I'm saying? And then, well, the only thing I do structuredized is when I teach my classes, or if I'm recording, then I let the creative process come through and I just record and write music and stuff like that. But when I strength train, yeah, I do follow a program, because you're not going to get strong by training only 5 minutes every hour,
Right.
Instead, the opposite. But it's different. Like the strength training, I'll do something where I'll do a half hour to an hour to 2 hours, depending on how much time I have. And usually that's the first thing I do in the mornings. I wake up in the morning, I go right into my garage, because my garage, I have my squat rack and I have all my equipment. I do my strength training. And in between sets, I rest 5 minutes in between each set. And in those 5 minutes, I practice some silat, or I practice some qigong breathing exercises, right? That way I'm getting everything in before I
Right.
go to work. And then when I go to work, I've already trained, I've already done what I need to. And then at work, when I have a break, I have my little guitar with me. I practice my scales and my improvisation ideas and things like that. So I've learned in my 43 years of walking the planet that you have to just put a little every day. Okay. It's sometimes better to put a little every day than to try to do 4 hours, of one thing every once in a while. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing like investing. You invest, you dollar cost average a little every day into the S&P 500. I
Right.
do the same thing, like I have a rule for myself where I invest $5 every day into the S&P 500. And of course, you're getting at least an 8 to 10% return annually, right? It grows. So 30, 40 years, maybe less, I can then just focus on the things I love. You see what I'm saying? So you
Yeah.
apply this methodology to everything you're doing. So what would happen to you if you practiced, for example, one Kriya Yoga or one meditation every 5 minutes of every hour that you're awake? That's a guaranteed 2-3 hours a day that you're going to practice. It might not be what somebody would say, oh, well, it's not a good practice because it's only 5 minutes. Yeah, but it adds up. You know what I'm saying? So that's the mentality that I learned from Dr. Morris, and it's really helped me with a lot of things in my life. And so that's
Yeah.
why people, how the hell do you, work a full-time job, have children and pay for a house and teach and train and strength train. And well, that's my secret. I just gave it to you. So
Yeah, and it's going to be on YouTube as well. So I hope people tune in, and it will be very beneficial, because this is a very, very useful and essential technique which all of us
yeah,
can. Even people who have a job where they are in front of their desk. I mean, even every hour, if you so-called go for a toilet break, and if in the bathroom,
yeah.
you can do a couple of squats, for example, or look up
Oh yeah, yeah. My other teacher, Uncle Bill, he has a similar type mentality, because I guess this is from the Taoist. Both Dr. Morris and Uncle Bill are both Taoist. Um, Uncle Bill had a thing where every time you pass by anything metal, to hit it a little bit lightly.
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like anything, right? But you know, you then you come to, like, my door. Here's metal, right? I'll show you.
Uh-huh.
This doesn't hurt my hands, see? Because for the last 20 years, I've been hitting metal every day. When I open the door at work, I open it lightly, but I'll push against it. I don't know if you can see my hand, but
Right.
it's very low to knock on it. But over 10 years, 20 years, I've developed the ability to hit metal and not hurt myself. And this was the way that my teacher taught me how to do what people would call like iron fist and things like this. But you don't do it. You don't overdo it hard. You just work a little every day, and then over time, you develop that energy to do it. You know.
Yeah, that's another interesting technique. But for those people who are watching at home, I don't know if it would be recommended to
Don't do
do it
that.
on your do it on your boss's door.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. And little by little, if they want more methods, I'll share with them. But you have to. You have to hide all these things, right?
Yes.
Because the modern world doesn't give a shit about the yogi or the martial artist,
Yeah.
right? So you have to hide these things. And like my teacher, Dr. Morris, would say, you have to become ninja, right? Ninja is not wearing a mask and being a ninja. Ninja is hiding your methods in plain sight, so nobody sees that you're cultivating and training and doing these things,
Yeah, definitely. I think this last 10-15 minutes, this technique you've been exploring with us, I think it's very invaluable. And I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
yeah.
and I'll give you something else too, which you can apply to music, right? So, like in powerlifting, you have periodization, right? So, for example, 1 week you train at 60%, the next week you train at 65, the next week you train at 75 or 70, next week 75, and then on the fourth week you come back down and you do like this, right? I find a lot of my friends that are musicians and they're my age, they're all getting tendonitis and they're all getting all these problems because they're always playing all the time at 100%, right? Sometimes you have to take it slow and take a day off. Sometimes you have to change the way you do things. Like, for example, I'll do a month or two of just acoustic guitar, just nylon, and then I'll do just steel string. Then I'll do my electric guitar, so I take a break from each one. And then sometimes I'll go like a period where I'll play a lot for 4 weeks and then I'll take a week off and I don't play at all. That way my hands are always healing. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And there's other methods to that, but I could get into that. But I found that this has always worked to keep my hands safe from tendonitis and all that kind of crazy stuff. So hopefully that
Yeah.
helps. But you periodize. So for example, I always did this. I wrote down a list of techniques, right? So for example, alternate picking, sweep picking, finger picking, like chicken picking, tapping, right? So I would make Mondays alternate picking,
Right.
Tuesday sweep picking, Wednesday legato, Thursday tapping, Friday uh, chicken picking, and then Saturday, Sunday I would just improvise and do whatever the hell I want. And this allowed me to get really good on guitar without trying to, if you will.
Yeah, it's this not only is this discipline is also with like this plan organization, and
Correct.
also having rest but doing certain things a little bit at a time, but on a consistent rate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
yeah, I mean, thank you so much for doing this episode, and it's been very insightful, invaluable advice from Guru Santiago Dobles.
Oh, thank you, man. I'm just a student of life, man. That's all. That
Yes.
I always tell my students, I only call me guru when I'm teaching you silat. When I'm not teaching you, then I'm just a regular Santiago.
Yes. So for links, Santiago's work, his website, his music, I will include on the YouTube
Thank you.
description. And
Yeah,
any
and
last words?
well, I was going to say for Aghora stuff, we do have in today's world it's kind of difficult because of the streaming. It doesn't support anybody, but we do have shirts for sale and CDs for sale. They can message me on Facebook and I can tell them what to do to find that. And you can find me on Facebook. You can find my silat school on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram as well. And I pretty much use Instagram as a daily journal. So you'll find everything from my training to music in there all the time, and also some of my politics, my craziness. But it's all good.
Yes, so I will include all of these links you've mentioned in the description, and I hope everyone had a good time joining us. Very insightful. Thank you again, Santiago, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you. You too, man. You too. Thank you so much.